I'm not sure I'm the best person to assess my stewardship, but in terms of what JFJ has managed to accomplish while I've been there, both as chairperson and as executive director, I think that we have a proud legacy. I think that we've changed the landscape in terms of advocacy in Jamaica. I think we've made issues such as police extrajudicial killings, ill treatment of the children in the care of the state, the terrible conditions on which children in conflict with the law are kept in our correctional services. I think we've made those issues part of the national dialogue. I think we've also shown that one can influence a situation and make change operating outside of the political parties. And I think that was one of the things that challenged us when we were first formed, as people didn't quite know how to take us. They kept trying to label us as partisan this or partisan that. And in fact, we never were, never will be. We are strictly non-partisan, and I think we've managed to convince people that it is possible to influence the public dialogue from outside of the political party structure. Our disappointment in terms of things we had hoped to achieve would lie with the rate of police fatal killings. Police fatal shooting rate has in fact increased during the life of the organization. And while we've been able to convince governments of the need for independent investigation and have seen INDECOM put in place, we've not seen the outcome of INDECOM's investigations resulting in conviction, as we expect that they will when they get through the court process, and therefore we've not seen the downturn in the police fatal shooting rate that we had really hoped to see. So in fact, what we've seen is an increase, and that's been a real disappointment. Another real disappointment would have to be the sidelining of the police reform process that was started in 2007 under then Minister of National Security, Peter Phillips, and continued under the JLP administration, successive ministers of national security, but has now been sidelined by this present Minister of National Security long before we get to the end point, which was meant to be an accountable Jamaica Police Service. I think that one of the defining things about us, and in fact I'll call them two, in our work on extrajudicial executions, I think the Michael Gale case, which went all the way up to the Inter-American Commission and resulted in a ruling which has influenced the creation of INDECOM. That ruling said that the government was responsible for making an independent assessment and investigation of police fatal shootings and security force abuses. And that has in fact now begun to appear in common law because it's being part of the judgment in the court of the Supreme Court of Jamaica in the cases that have been brought against INDECOM has referred to the Michael Gale judgment from the Inter-American Commission on Human Rights. Another one that we're very defined by was a Janice Allen case. And that case went all the way up to the Privy Council and has resulted in a ruling which is in fact groundbreaking in that it has said, and will remain in common law jurisdictions throughout, that any fraud that is committed on the court that was sufficient to influence a verdict can in fact nullify the principle of double jeopardy. So that even though you've been got off, if there is sufficient evidence of fraud to obtain that verdict, you can be recharged. And that's groundbreaking and earth-shattering, and that's our work on impunity. I think work on children, we certainly have made an impact. We've had 2 precautionary measures granted by the Inter-American Commission on Human Rights. One way back in 2005, another one this year about the uncontrollable children and the need for them to be removed, separated from adults, and separated on the basis of their status. These are both spanks for the government on their treatment of children in the care of the state. And perhaps forgotten after this length of time is the fact that we were part of that case to the Privy Council on the CCJ that said the government could not bring in a court of last regard by simple majority in Parliament, that court needed to be protected. Unfortunately, successive governments have not moved to refer this matter to the people so that we could settle the question of our final Court of Appeal once and for all. We hire policemen and we set up courts and we set up prisons, because we know that one-on-one we will be breaching each other's human rights, and there will need to be a mechanism to deal with it. And they need to deal with it. They need to do it efficiently, and they need to engage whatever stakeholders they need to engage in a process that's successful. To say that they can't do it is to fail us as a society and to make us question what on earth are we paying them for. And also, for myself, I fully and absolutely believe that Jamaicans are as capable as any other nation on earth of doing the things that move a society forward. If it's not happening, then we have to account for our failures, and we have to find a way to make it happen. It shows an ignorance of the principles of human rights and an ignorance of the principles of accountability. That assertion that we might be anti-police, which rears its head all the time. When I explain it to school children, I talk to them about the fact that if there's some criminal at the door and he's coming in to get you, you pick up the phone, you dial 119, because you're looking for police to come and save you, those who are paid to protect your rights by the state. When it is the awesome power of the state that is breaking down your door, i.e. police or security forces or even children's officers, who is it that you pick up your phone to call? Who is it that stands beside you, a single lonely individual, in the defense of your rights when the state is arrayed against you? And that is a role that traditionally human rights defenders, NGOs, have taken, to stand beside those who are in a lonely battle against the power of the state. The state pays and sets up and maintains an apparatus of thousands in order to protect you from the depredations of your fellow citizens. It might have been a signal that Mr. Ellington understood that he was accountable, not only for falls in the murder rate, but for increases in the murder rate. The police force has claimed the successful fall in the murder rate since 2010. They need now to own the rise in the murder rate in 2013. They need also to, the police commissioner has applied for a job and been given a job to improve the efficiencies of the police force. And in fact, this is not happening. And if you judge it simply on cleared up rates, if we don't even go to conviction rates, because he doesn't have control over the operations of the courts, but he certainly has control over the cleared up rate, which is a rate of efficient disposal of cases by the police force. That's falling. The rate of murder is rising, and the rate of fatal shootings by the police is at its highest cumulative total under his leadership. In the 4 years of his tenure, more than 1,000 Jamaicans have died at the hands of the police. There may well come a time when we have calls for resignation from leaders of security apparatus, including ministers. But this is a leader of the security apparatus. Mr. Ellington applied for the job of police commissioner with the understanding that that job comes with an accountability. It certainly is easier. I certainly get more requests for interviews from the media, and I certainly get more pats on the back when I go to the supermarket or when I travel on the road from people who stop me and say, please, keep doing what you're doing. I even have had support from within the police force for our most recent call for the resignation of the commissioner, where policemen have come up to me and said, please keep that up. So I think there's a wider understanding, if still resistance, to the idea that human rights belong to all and that they must be defended for all. But history judges you on the pressure that you place to bend the arc of history towards justice. History is judging today Nelson Mandela. He's judging a man who walked his walk, was willing to be in prison, to be a criminal, to be a terrorist in the cause of justice for his people. Our government needs to display that kind of leadership, that kind of commitment, that kind of belief in the capacity of the Jamaican people to be the solution rather than the problem. CVC Coalition has hired me to be their executive director. They're an organization that boasts membership from Belize right back to the Bahamas, and the role of helping to shape their course forward, to helping to strengthen them, strategize around best methods going forward around the fight against HIV and AIDS. We are entering an important era in that fight. We have moved beyond the initial despairing acknowledgement that we had to be dying with AIDS to a place where we were now living with HIV and AIDS. And maybe, just maybe, we're at a point where we can begin to talk about ending AIDS. And the work that the CVC Coalition will be doing will be critical to this in the Caribbean, which still has the highest rate of HIV infection in the world. Jamaica will be hearing from me. This is my land, my home, and a place where I'll be planning to work to push forward for justice for all.